Welcome, everybody, to the Career Jungle podcast, where we talk about work, education, and everything in between. And today is our first video YouTube podcast recording. So we're very excited about that. And as usual, I'm here with Ben and Daniel Ashkenazi, right?
Yes.
Yes. And he
Uh,
is a bootcamp graduate of the developers.institute and now works as a software engineer at Simplify. So we'll start off by just hearing, Daniel, a little bit about your background, how you found the bootcamp, and how you got, what you're doing now in your current job.
okay. All right. All right. First of all, I have to thank you both guys for taking me, and I'm very happy to take like this opportunity to be able to speak at the at your podcast. So a little thing about my name though, I like people to call me with my stage name, if I can say it that way. In my life, I also have the chance to be involved in a theater and acting, which I'll probably speak a little bit. But it's Daniel Ash, ACH. And in Israel, actually,
How is it
it's Aleph.
pronounced? Daniel
So
what?
ACH, it's so the original is Ashkenazi.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like a Persian name. That's also another story. Maybe not for a tech podcast. And basically, I just turned it into Ash, ACH. It's easier, Daniel Ash.
Okay.
It's a cool name.
And yeah, and in Israel, it basically is Aleph Shin, so Esh. For those of you who
Okay.
are Hebrew.
Like
Got
fire.
Exactly, exactly. Now, basically, talking about my background, I guess if we have to talk about what happened before the tech background, I guess I write from Belgium originally, and then I started working in hotel and management. So basically, I was supposed to enter a university, and it didn't really work out with the university since it closes like 2 weeks before the opening. After that, I was
That's
in
not fun.
Belgium, and yeah, it's pretty a hard start in your life, because I was about to start there for 3 years and really get into that. And basically, what happened is that I stayed in Belgium for a while, and then still decided to travel, and I ended up doing a bartending course, and I became, if I can say that, I kind of became a bartender uh, officially. Now, what happened after is that basically I entered like a bar. So I work in like those famous, Tel Avivian bar. The energy is amazing. You get to meet a lot of people and really, enjoy life the way you can do it in Tel Aviv.
Right.
Um, but after, I had also the opportunity to enter a very very nice hotel in Yafo. So there is
Okay.
this hotel called the Jaffa Hotel, that is basically the newest Marriott hotel in Israel, and also apparently the most luxurious that they did in Israel. And the idea was that they hired me to come to the hotel as the 10 first waiters of the hotel. So I worked in the food and beverage department, and I grew up there as a waiter, then a captain waiter, then I was a bartender, a barista. I basically took care a little bit of everything until a point where they told me, look, you're here for a while, so why don't you become what they call a departmental trainer? And
Oh
so
wow.
basically, I had the chance to be there as the one who introduces all the new people that are coming to the hotel to work with us. So it was a lot of like training them and telling them about the standard of the hotel. And this is basically what I did until March 2020.
Oh, what happened
So,
then?
but until then, March 2020, so our dear friend, I don't know how to call it anymore, but COVID happened. I was, yeah, I from a day to another, like that's it. The hotel told me, so we love you, but there is no work right now, and we have to protect everyone, the workers as well as the people and the guests of the hotel.
So you
So I
had
was
like
saying,
an
mhm,
entire career trajectory, and then it's gone like that. It's
exactly,
over.
exactly. And
How do you how did you feel? Because I think I'd be devastated.
I agree. So first of all, you guys will know me very soon, but I'm not the kind who will really go straight to depression. I think there is like a lot of like shlav, like we say in Hebrew, steps, until I really reach that
The
that
five
point of
stages of
uh,
grief.
Exactly. God forbid. Basically, what happened is that I stepped back and have the chance to be surrounded by great people that helped me, speaking and about, what's the situation. And I took first of all a week because I've been working a lot at the hotel. It's those jobs as well as other jobs take a lot of energy, but this one especially also physically, because you have to be there for people and serve, and I think I was happy to have that little moment of rest. And what happened after is that I'm someone who's really comfortable in front of my computer and in front of any type of technology in general, and I was not really into coding, but I told myself, okay, how about just giving it a shot and trying those amazing online learning on those learning platforms. I usually speak about Udemy.
Mhm.
There is the Code Academy that have also stuff, of course, and there's no way you don't pass this one, but YouTube is
The
like
number one,
yeah, it's
the
I think
modern
YouTube.
university.
Exactly. The same way we're gonna soon speak about Google. I mean, it's also linked, obviously, but
Right.
YouTube was definitely a great source of information. And I told myself, okay, I have a month in front of me. I don't have any other responsibilities. In the meantime, I guess we all had to, understand what was going on, staying home. So I said, okay, let's not lose time. I am a big Netflix and chill person, but not to the point where I can do it for 8 hours a day.
What are you binging right now?
What am I binging? Great question. I am okay. If I tell you that might sounds a bit weird, but I guess
Okay.
this is my mood right now. I'm watching something that is actually not on Netflix. That is called Couples Therapy.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically a real life documentary about people that are talking about their relationship, and it's basically they are in front of a therapist and they do a therapist session, a couple therapy session, and you just listen. And I am learning so much from it, from the experience of people. And I didn't think I thought, I mean, I thought it was a little bit for girls, but then I realized, okay, no, there's a lot of men like involved in that, and in fact, no, it's really really interesting. I'm not done yet, but it brings you to think, and I don't know if any of you guys did like a therapy session, but it helps cleaning what's in your mind, and I think I'm also like getting a little bit from that, and yeah, that's what I'm binging right now. Okay, so.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool.
Thanks. I was speaking about, yeah, this month where I started. So I took the opportunity to start. It's like a $15 course. And the name was so full stack development, web development with Angela Yu. That's the
This is on
name.
Udemy.
Yeah,
Okay.
on Udemy. And I did basically the full stack bootcamp using JavaScript.
Okay.
JavaScript, Node.js, React, and I think a little bit of Redux.
Okay, cool.
So that was really the beginning. Now, what
And
happened is
before
that,
that, you didn't know any coding.
no, very honestly, zero. Like I probably heard about what's HTML and CSS, and I knew how to do inspect. And people don't know how to code. They're like, wait, if I inspect and I change here, and they think they're hackers. I love it. So yeah, that was probably the only thing I could do. And the idea was that I took this class very seriously. In fact, it was like it was 60 hours of videos, which
Oh wow.
is a lot. And it's not only 60 hours in total, because you have to pause the video, you have to do the challenges, you have to solve the challenges. So I think it was something around like 120 hours. Like I think you can easily double it.
My
um
rule is always when I watch video tutorials, especially if
yeah,
it's coding, I
yeah,
multiply it by 2.5. I go,
yeah, fair.
if the video is the video, you pause, and then you also have to take into account when you have challenges to do on your own.
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
knows how long that will take?
Exactly. Especially when they get more and more complex. At the
Right.
beginning they just tell you, okay, add a code and then solve the challenge, and you're
Yeah.
super happy. And then they're like, okay, you're gonna build the whole
Yeah.
database
You're
model.
gonna build the full React app.
Exactly. So now it got more and more complex. And throughout the course, this is where the how can I call it, the happiness of coding probably
Okay.
came up in a way that debugging was the most satisfying part. I'm sure you guys as developers will recognize that. But the idea is that I got those
I've never
challenges.
heard that before.
Okay. You gotta be sarcastic. But basically, I got those crazy challenges, and I was there trying to solve them. And at some point, when you are 2 3 hours on something, and you gotta be patient, because that's also the whole game. Some people don't like coding simply because they don't have the patience to dig a little more and try again
Absolutely.
and print in the console 20,000 times until you see no errors coming up. But yeah, I love that. I think still today, the fact that I can try build a new feature and then see at the end see it like working is definitely the most amazing and satisfying part. Just work after like 4 hours and you're like jumping and being super
Yeah.
happy. No one understands, but you understand why. This is the end. And that was awesome. That was the highlight of my first quarantine, being at home. The situation was not easy, obviously. I heard a lot of people going into depression, and I think my way of getting out of this was, yeah, to dig into something new and to really appreciate it, and to do more and more. So that was until, so I think 2 months later, I finished it in about a month, the the yeah the this boot camp. After, I had a little period where I was involved again into acting and theater. So
Mhm.
I opened a French speaking acting class in Israel. So very, very, very cool, great experience. And yeah, it also involved some like brand creation. So that was like a part where I had to manage a logo also, and the company, and an email, and like I think that was like the sales part of my year. Um,
Okay.
I'm
But
saying
where
that
where do you
now.
teach the class?
So so basically the school is called the American Acting Center of
Okay.
Israel. Now they do lessons in English. This is where I studied also for about like 2 or 3 years,
Okay.
since I arrived in Israel. And basically at some point they told me, hey, do you want to maybe try to open a French section? I think that can be a great thing. And I totally agree. I was totally into it. I think being able to manage this was also great. The people, the teacher. I myself obviously love, and I'm very passionate about acting and theater. So we had that little class, and it was July and August. So literally, those 2 months were a little less problematic, like with COVID. For
Right.
some reason, it was still accepted to have a room with people with masks. So we managed. And boom, second wave. We were in
Oh
September
boy.
2020. Problems, like everything is closing. So basically, end of August, the end of my little experience as a manager for that acting school, I decided to enter the bootcamp. So the bootcamp, it's the Developer Institute. I did the full stack Python in August and finished in
Okay.
November. Now, here is an interesting point, because you guys might ask me, how did you move from doing a $15 course to paying 26,000 shekels? So this is the today's price for the bootcamp. It's a 3 months intensive bootcamp. And I didn't really, applied for it. I had the chance to meet great people over there. I am also working with them today. I basically got in touch with them thanks to like a little Instagram ad. So I am definitely, and I'm saying it really openly, I'm someone who clicks on ads on Instagram or whatever social medias, because I don't know, I'm curious, and sometimes I've really found interesting stuff. Some people may say, if you think it was interesting, it meant like, okay, they were right, and they made. I mean, if they're making billions of dollars, it's for it to be interesting for you, I guess. But anyhow, this is really how it started, and I saw the ad, and I got into this Google Meet, and I openly ask in front of like a couple of people, "Hi, why is your bootcamp this price, and why I can get on Udemy a $15, bootcamp? What is the reason?" I remember them being kind of like, surprised about the question, because apparently people didn't really ask. But for me, it was like obvious to try to dig a little bit and what's going on. Like, how
Right.
can you pass from a price to another? And does the internet, I mean, doesn't the internet have enough information and tutorial for us to have enough knowledge to become developers? And after 5 calls, so literally 5 calls talking about getting into the bootcamp, I really understood why I should enter the bootcamp. And should we speak about those reasons?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's hear about them.
Okay, okay, awesome.
Yeah,
I'll take-
because before you get into that, yeah, because a lot of people listening are thinking like, oh, should I go to a boot camp? What is a boot camp?
Yeah.
I'm interested in coding. Maybe I work a little bit with coding. And so
Yeah.
tell, I'm sure a lot of people would like to hear like, yeah, what are your reasons for joining this specific boot camp and a boot camp in general? What's like the value there?
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So overall, I think that I will split it into points. One of the points that is probably the biggest one in terms of the bootcamp in general is the community. That's definitely what took me in. I guess someone who's really and was really, involved in social events, in social work, and always, surrounded by people. So for me, to be able to do a boot camp was also a way to enter the industry, but also enter it with a community and be able to, to speak to those people and in real lifetime, just sending a message somewhere and be like, hey, you're a developer in Developer Institute, maybe we can be in touch, what's going on, and meeting people, and meeting teachers, and so on and so on. So that was probably the biggest reason why I entered the bootcamp. Now, the other things are also, I think, the commitment and the quality of the lessons. What I mean is that when you're on your own doing an online lesson like on the internet, you are alone, facing crazy challenges,
Right.
and you are able to go on the internet and Google stuff. You also are able, if you don't really find the answer to your question, to Google it and to ask on forums like Stack Overflow or Reddit or whatever. But it still isn't the same as having a nice one-on-one with a teacher that will walk through the code with you, that will debug with you, that will give you hints, that will even give you stuff like keyboard shortcuts. Hey, do you know if you click here you can do it? Those are like small stuff that you can only get on a one-on-one sessions and on being with someone that helps you.
Personal
Oh,
touch.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Now, this third thing I said was, yeah, about the quality of the lessons. I think in the boot camp, since they made they're doing the boot camp every 3 months. First of all, it's updated every time, so you're getting in a lesson that you're sure is really up to date, the last version of Python, the last version of Node, the last version of whatever you like, framework you're using. And updates means also that you're using it sometimes a different way. You're probably not using Bootstrap 5 the way you're using Bootstrap, or you were using Bootstrap 1. So I think that's also a point. And sometimes those online lessons are supposedly updated, but some stuff are still not, like the videos needs to be, done again. And so that's also the third point. I think I covered like the three main points why I thought it was relevant for me to enter it. Oh, I think I can add the last thing probably is
Yeah.
definitely the job like part of it. The boot camp and in general boot camps do not promise you to have a job. That's like in the contract. They're saying, sorry, we cannot promise you to have a job, but they can promise me to find me an internship.
Okay.
And that was also fair. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do boot camp and I know I will do an internship. And now behind that, my idea was like, okay, I'm gonna be in an internship. It means I will probably have to deal with some company for like 1, 2, or 3 months, whatever. And why would the company not hire me if I will spend 3 months of my life, working and understanding their needs?
Mhm.
Obviously depends the context, but I believe in 3 months you're able, with some good motivation, to show a company that you can do the work they ask you. So that was, yeah, also an important part is like the where am I taking it after the bootcamp? And there is a post bootcamp that's going on as well. Now the downsides, I saw them very quickly. First of all, also very big point, the price. So as I'm not Israeli today for whatever million reasons. And so I didn't get all the help from the country. The bootcamp helped me a little bit because they understood and they always do like case per case. So whenever they accept people to the bootcamp, you can be sure that you will have this 30-minute call where they ask you questions, they make sure that you're doing the right thing because it's a life change. You're not doing this bootcamp if you just want to have a new skill. You would do a part-time bootcamp probably if you want to have a new skill, but a full-time bootcamp means literally being 10, 11, 12 hours per day in front of your computer for the next 3 months, for the next 12 weeks, and having a life change. So this is also what you need to take in consideration. Now, starting the bootcamp, the first thing I realized was the rhythm. So the pace. What I do, and you guys probably do when you watch tutorials, is that you have this amazing button to just speed up, the video, and then you're like, okay, wow, I'm watching a 50-minute video in like 25 minutes. It's just efficient, And even better, there's another crazy button. I don't know if you guys know about it. It's called play pause. So that's also, a revolution. And honestly,
in the boot camp, were you coding
yeah,
a lot as the instructor is talking? Is it like an interactive lesson?
a very good question. So I either listen to the lecture and then take my time to do it by my own, or some class I just follow along. Whatever he does, I do it because I feel like the way he thinks and the way I want to learn it, I like to just do it myself at the same time, and then it also helps me in understanding like better. So it depends. Some class I want to follow along and just do it myself also, or I'll just wait until like some parts of the lecture or the end sometimes of the lecture to try the exercise myself. As a
Right.
reminder, a day of a boot camp always goes 9:30, 12:30 lecture. So we're speaking about
Okay.
the new topic of the day, and then 1 hour break, and then from 1:30 until 4:30 you have exercises the afternoon. So that's more or less how it goes.
And are
And
these
then,
guided exercises with the instructor or
yeah,
like homework?
yeah. So yeah, it's a guided one. So it's still part of the hours of the boot camp. Like the teacher is here. The usually the teacher assistant is here to help you along with your exercises. And then end of the day, you think you're going to chill, or sorry, to Netflix and chill, but then comes the daily challenge, and so every day you have to prepare a daily challenge for the next
Hmm.
morning. And so
So
this
you
is
so you have a lecture where you learn about a topic, then you do some sort of exercises, and then you have like the daily challenge. I assume it's like a daily homework assignment.
yeah, exactly. It's a daily assignment, daily challenge where we speak either about the topic of the day and you have to do it on your own, or
Okay.
they give you a little exercise about the day, the next day, so you can kind
Hmm.
of start researching about the next day. That's pretty
They
much.
prepare you for the next topic.
Yeah. Now, when I spoke here about this first problem about the rhythm and the pace when I started the bootcamp, is that I was used to watch videos on Udemy and just eat 5 episodes or like 5 topics a day. And at the bootcamp, I was kind of stuck on one topic a day, and I was also kind of stuck on waiting for the teacher to give me the informations in a
Right.
way that he was teaching, and you cannot tell the teacher go faster, go slower. You can pause him, okay, hey, can you repeat? That's also part of the nice things about the bootcamp in a way, because if you really didn't understand something, that's also the part when you can say, hey, excuse me, can you repeat that part, and have more explanations. But still, that kind of bothers me at the beginning because I was really used to just being very efficient and going at my own pace.
So did you feel? I understand you feel like you were slowed down, but
Yeah.
to me, sometimes I feel like, especially when I do a tutorial online,
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like I need to do it twice even.
I
Sometimes even
agree.
3 times.
Yeah.
And I feel like the first time I get an overview, and
Mhm.
the second time I still try to do everything, and the third time I do a deep dive. So if it's something I already got,
Mhm.
I leave it alone. Like
Yeah.
I know I spoke to you before, so I know you also learned Flutter.
Yeah.
So in Flutter, I understood a lot of the details in the widgets.
Yeah.
I didn't understand so much kind of like under the hood stuff. So that's something I had to do a deep dive into. So my
Nice.
question is, did you feel like in the boot camp, as opposed to when you're watching videos,
Yeah.
you're able to get a deeper understanding of every topic, or was it just too slow to the point where you're like, this is too slow, I'm not being stimulated enough, it's like going over my head?
No, what I was trying also to say here is that this feeling was mainly at the beginning.
Hmm.
For the simple reason that the beginning was like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, but I had
Stuff you already
already
knew really well.
exactly that I already knew really well in a way that I did those 60 hours. And I think, yeah, that was just probably just because it was the beginning of it.
Right.
After, I still was like, okay, I was doing during the bootcamp some other tutorials on my own, but that was, as you said, way more difficult. It was like new topics, and I liked the fact that I had sometimes this little 30 minutes per day with the teacher on one-on-one, and I could ask him, hey, can we do that together again? And this is where we dived inside the complexity of it and all the other like stuff.
The exercises, or do you also have an additional one-on-one with the teacher?
So usually I'll use the time of the boot camp because I had also the chance to not be in a big like such a big class. So whenever I had like the teacher was online or it was live, whatever, I would take the time to ask him.
Oh, this was
Yeah.
during the second lockdown, so you were doing the boot camp online.
Online, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I assume that adds to the difficulties.
That it did, but it did not.
Okay,
In fact,
interesting.
I'm someone who gets kind of easily distracted. So what good point is that I was alone at home,
Mhm.
watching and here listening to the teacher. Connection was very good. As I said before, Ben, I have the fiber. So I'm happy to have very good internet connection. Now, being live, because I did both. I
Right.
did both. We're gonna know it soon, but as a teacher and student. And I think when you're live, you can get easily more distracted, and the dynamic of learning or whatever or teaching is a little different because
Right.
when you're online, you have direct, a screen share that you can do.
Yeah.
You have also sometimes a pointer. So we had like this thing on Slack. That's what we use, where whenever I ask something, the teacher can underline stuff using a pointer and his mouse from his side. And also I know it was sometimes so much more efficient. And when you're next to someone, you have the human part that is also very
Right.
good. Sometimes you're alone at home and you're scared and you need that person that is next to you, that is helping and just kind of protecting you. You're just starting and it's so overwhelming at the beginning. And the
Yeah.
fact of having a good teacher, you're like, hey, yo, thank you so much. And the energy is different. Energy is different.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Unfortunately, like screens cut that a lot, the human parts, and it's like we're missing it a little bit. To come back where we were, in the story, I think, yeah, the boot camp in general was a great experience in every side. I really had the chance to meet. You always feel like you at some point you're gonna meet the master in the subject, and I met that
Right.
person. I'm really happy. So by the way, Jonathan Spieler, that's a hi for you.
Who's Jonathan Spieler is one of the instructors?
Yeah, he was the lead instructor at the Developers Institute,
Cool.
Python instructor. I want to say hi to all the teachers now, but definitely Jonathan and Avi were the two like masters of the boot camp. And you see, when you're in front of that person and the explanation is so clear and you really enjoy the lesson and they tell you all about it, like also about the story, because they have 10 years behind or 20 sometimes, and they can even tell you a specific part of the code that was done in 2 weeks that today is being done in 3 lines of code,
Right.
literally. So those were, yeah, definitely the part I love the most. The teacher like changed my mind about coding and in general, and I built a very good relation with them. Now, after the bootcamp, what happened is that I had the chance to start an internship. So what happened is that a person inside the bootcamp takes care of reviewing your CV and sending it to companies. And then, companies comes back to you and they tell you, maybe you want to have an interview with us. Now, I've done interviews in my life. Doesn't matter if it's an audition for a casting or an interview for a hotel. I think for me, it's all a little bit the same. And I was kind of, used and comfortable with it. And what happened is just that a company, so Simplify, the company I currently work, came to me. I spoke with the CTO of the company, and he just said, "Hey, we would like to build some kind of CRM using Flutter, Firebase, and this is the NoSQL data. Do you think you'll be able to do the assignment?" Honestly, he's gonna watch the video, but I had no idea. I didn't know anything about Firebase, about Flutter, I knew about database. I did some NoSQL database, but I've just finished a bootcamp doing 3 months of SQL, the opposite database that he asked me.
Different concept.
Yeah, different concept completely. So I just said, hey, you know what? I'll give it a try, no problem. So at the same time, I was also building a website for a company. So I just said that person asked me to do a little landing page. That was also a good little, small experience.
Is this independent of the boot camp?
Yeah, that was independent of the bootcamp. That was just a first little project that came to me. And I was happy, to deal with domain names, buying a domain, connecting a domain. We did in the bootcamp host 2 websites. That's part of the program, but we never really hosted and then bought the domain and get to the point where you have to, finish a product, especially like the legal parts of it where you have to add all the legal like documents and the links to it. So I got to do that at the beginning also. At the end of the bootcamp for just a little week. It was a 1 week project. And just after the CTO of Simplify gave me an assignment. So it went like that. He told me, I'll give you something like 4 days or like a weekend to do it. Let me know if you can manage. So first day, everything is new. So you have to do your research and understand where you're standing with the project. I kind of took it easy. And from the second day, I started to understand most of it. I'm gonna have to get information from database and then just display it. Now with the knowledge I had, I linked, to use easy words for those who were not really in coding, but I basically linked an admin panel, an admin page. I guess that's pretty common. Just an admin page with the information from Firebase. So 2 things that didn't have to do anything with that I linked. Now,
what do you mean, like that they don't typically work together? Do you mean, or things that you never knew how to use?
So the admin panel I used was initially used for a SQL database.
Okay.
Now, the one that I used was not NoSQL. So the database that I linked to it was not something that usually we do. But that was the only idea that came up to my mind. And actually, it turns out that it worked pretty well because the information I got really well, like into the CRM they asked me to do. And after a couple of days, and so 4 days, when I started putting everything together, I did the presentation, and I think they were pretty happy about it because in fact they hired me for the internship.
Nice.
And that was really the starting point of the post bootcamp. Now to kind of almost end the story, I did the 3 months bootcamp, the 3 months, internship. So we're arriving like in January. Then there was the debrief of everything, and I spoke also with the CEO and everyone in the company, and they decided to hire me as their first developer.
Very cool.
So yeah, that was definitely an amazing part because
And what was your role there? Was it full stack? Mobile?
Yeah, exactly. So During the 3 months, I continued building that CRM that I initially started, and I turned it into today what we called our CMS, so Content Management System.
Okay, cool.
So to give you a good example, the CEO was putting videos inside the app using the database directly. Today, he's using the CMS to just add a video in 10 seconds.
Cool.
That was my
So,
job for
so
us
you
to,
build an interface for them to be able to
yes,
upload things.
exactly.
Wow.
And today, through the CMS, we can also take care of the users of the app,
Mm-hmm.
also of the content, and also of the premium, and maybe soon the payment also. Like still
Wow.
continuously like being
Cool.
updated. That's the
Yeah.
current part.
Cool story, and really interesting to hear how they structured the boot camp. So I'm curious a little bit like what the company does and what the app is.
Yeah, of course, of
Okay.
course. So just talking about the company. So the company is called Simplify, not Simplify, because a lot of people can do the can do the difference. Simplify is today an application that helps people with the fear of flying.
Okay.
So basically, the CEO Alon Pereg was initially helping people face to face. He was doing some trainings with them, and people really enjoyed the training. In fact, people that were not taking the plane at all like started doing their first flight after getting to do this training with him, and they told him, wow, thanks to you I can fly today. I'm less scared. I understand what it means to fly, because unfortunately people are are ignorant about it and don't really understand how secure it is to fly. In fact, the car is less secured than the plane. And all these things to say that at the end, someone just told him, hey, you should definitely digitalize your training, your workshop, if we can call it a better word. Now, what he did is that he filmed the whole course, into like sections, and also did audio about it. So you can listen to it or watch it in the plane. You can also download it. And very soon, we hope to also add a chat and also just a couple of other follow up with people thanks to the app. Now, we also hope that in a few months from here, we're also going to be able to work with airline companies, and people will
Cool.
probably buy their plane ticket and also add the Simplify support. So
Oh,
they'll be
like a
able to,
package.
yeah, the package, and so they'll be able to have a premium access to our app and premium access to the chat, and they will be able to speak before or maybe during the flight for some flight that have Wi-Fi, and after the flight to pilots. And it looks like there is a minority of people that are scared, but this minority is big enough to have like to do some work there. And so this is more or less what we're working on at Simplify. And I am today so the Flutter developer, and also the backend developer. So taking care, managing the
Very cool.
CMS. That's what we do, and I'm very proud to work there. And I work with amazing people as well. And I hope you guys will link that in the description.
Yeah.
Simplify.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. I'll send it to my sister. She would appreciate that.
Awesome.
This is
Awesome.
this is an amazing story because you're saying you were the first developer there.
Yes, yes. In fact, they are a new
So
startup.
like you kind of built the engineering department in that company. Like you went from
I
boot camp to opening a department. It's amazing.
I guess. Thanks.
That's
Yeah. Yeah.
very
Yeah. Yeah.
cool, man. Like
Thank you.
that's a very like you took a lot of things on your shoulder.
Well, I had the chance to be again surrounded by great people. Even during the internship and the work I am doing today, I'm still in touch with my teachers that helped me throughout the challenges I have for the company. And all of this together, worked pretty well. And I'm yeah, I'm very happy. It just took me to where I am today.
So
Um,
that's amazing. And it goes
Thank
to
you.
show how the having the right people can really make it or break it. And I can definitely I know from my experience it's definitely true. I have
Yeah.
instructors from my university that to this day I think about them, and even
Yeah.
they were amazing. But I had a question more about the boot camp aspect of it. And maybe you can tell me where you learned these things, because it's like a two-part question. So
Yeah.
first, what specifically were the skills that you learned at the boot camp versus the skill that you learned at the internship? And I guess I'll already ask, there's so many things that are around engineering.
Yeah.
Like you can learn, I kind of look at it, it's kind of a hierarchy, and at the shallowest point is you learn HTML, you learn CSS,
Yeah.
you learn JavaScript and some sort of backend framework.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole question of learning, what an API is. What does it even mean to make like some sort of like request,
Request. Yeah.
and building the REST API, all that stuff. And I think there's even another level where you go, for me, my first job, the first thing that I was like, that I came out like, oh my God, I'm such a noob, was when they're like, okay, so now just clone the repo and upload to it. And I was like, what? Like on GitHub, I was like, and like, yeah, so you have the development repo and you have the work, like the master. And I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
because there are all
Category.
these things around, like
Mhm.
GitHub or branch management in general. What other technologies are kind of like around it, and you don't, like, I can tell you from my degree, we learned some version control, but I think the biggest thing that I hear from people, the number one thing is version control. They don't know what it is, and
Yeah.
they come
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. Look,
So did
UX
you learn
UI,
it? What?
UX UI is also a part of it. Like,
Absolutely. So did you learn this stuff in the boot camp?
interesting, very interesting. I would say that sometimes in the bootcamp we also have the opportunity to meet people for specific topics. So bootcamp provides you people that are today in the industry of like design. And lately we had a workshop, a 2-hour workshop about how to use Photoshop, and how to understand some of the logos or whatever
Oh
branding
wow.
you want to use.
It's like
So
that
that's
extra
a very
step.
yeah, exactly, extra step. And other than that, I would say that all along the project you will do, so throughout the bootcamp you also have to do about literally, I don't know, probably 10 projects, but 2 serious projects.
Mhm.
What I mean by serious is just one where you will have an idea and you will start creating it, and throughout this idea that you create, you will get into all the extras, and the teacher will be there with enough experience to teach you whatever you need. I don't know if it answers a little bit, but somehow we don't directly go into the extras, but the teacher will be here to help. Also, what I want to say is that don't forget that the bootcamp is here to give you a basic knowledge about a basic topic.
Right.
We are going to do according to what they say, 2 years of learning condensed in 3 months. So imagine every day and every lecture every morning is really important, and we cannot really go too much outside of the picture. We'd rather have a strong basis, and then the game will be for you to be curious about other stuff and document yourself, and then use the teachers to do that extra step.
Right.
That will be,
Look,
I see.
it makes perfect sense what you said, because you can learn GitHub. Like you can
Mhm.
watch a YouTube series, or even you can have a lecture, but you don't really get it until you have to do it. So other things, like for instance, you said they were telling you how to use the developer tools and
Yeah,
all the key. Like I went to work, I had this, the first job I worked in,
yeah.
the guy that was directly in charge of it was the CTO. He had no
Okay.
patience for me. Nothing.
Oh.
I didn't even know that you press like F11 to go to the next command. This guy,
Wow.
every question I asked was like, you don't know you, and I was like, oh my God. But
Wow.
again, I wouldn't have been able to learn it. I mean, I could have watched the tutorial and learned it, but it's
Yeah.
true, if you're sitting with your instructor one-on-one, then he goes, oh, by the way, Daniel, you press F10, you press
Yeah.
F12, you bring up the inspect, and then you press F10, you can debug.
Yeah.
I think you learn it better that way. So I think it's really good that you don't need to have a lecture on it, but
Mhm.
the fact that they teach you, that they even show it to you, I mean, it goes, like you said, it's one of those things, you get a little taste of it, then you go later and go, okay, I can play around with this, I can read about it more. So that's huge.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. I agree. I totally agree. In
And in the
fact,
inter-
in the internship, I think the internship was amazing for the part where when I started to build the CMS, I had so I built it using the Django admin panel.
Mm-hmm.
Now I didn't had a lot of knowledge about it, but when you're working for 3 months on one specific part using Django, wow, I got into stuff where I was overwriting the initial Django code because I
Oh,
had to go
wow.
so far that I completely took everything out of the platform, and then I rebuilt it and using all the parts one by one, changing a little bit the layout. And when it's a pre-built code, like I mean, no one will change when you guys do a from React import React. No one will go change the React code. It's like
Right.
never touch that. It's forbidden.
It's
But
holy. You don't
yeah,
touch it.
it's holy. It's holy. Like the best developers in the world are updating it, so you shouldn't touch it. But I had to do that, and that was for me the super extra, step where I had to copy the template and then overwrite it to the needs of the company. That was that's probably the things I touched during the internship. Now, last little thing I also wanted to say was that last month I was a teacher. So my boot camp, after I don't know if I can say it that way, but accomplishing whatever I did for the past year, told me, hey, I think it could be a good opportunity for you to teach the basic. How about it? I was totally in. I jumped inside. I was like, okay, that's an amazing opportunity. Uh,
Wow.
and it was. I was 3 weeks teaching HTML, CSS, JavaScript, GitHub, Bash to people that never touched coding. And throughout the thing, I was just hoping every second that they would get that happiness of debugging. And I had 10 people online, 10 people live. I teach online, I teach live. So you see, this is great also for me, and I'm super happy to say that after a year and 2 months of coding, I'm able to teach today already the basics, the real basics. And yeah, that was the highlight of last month. And
So when was that? When did you start teaching?
I started teaching last month for the new bootcamp that started. So every 3 months there is a bootcamp at Developer Institute.
Okay.
I did mine in August, and the one that started was at beginning of April, like end of March. And I did week 1 to 3. Yeah.
So we have, I think also the lockdown in 2020, at least in Israel, started around the end of March of
Okay.
2020.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have you going from never coding before to doing an online course.
Yeah.
And I have a related question about that. Then
Okay.
doing the boot camp, then
Yes.
getting your job, and then it's like you're really, you did an entire circle. In Hebrew, you say closing the circle, and you
Yes.
become the teacher.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
amazing.
Yeah,
That's it. It's an amazing story.
that's pretty crazy. So I'm actually not a coder. And
Okay.
so just quickly, some terms that were mentioned about React and Django, those are frameworks for people use for coding. And so I have a quick question. As a non-coder, for me and for a lot of people in the audience, what advice do you have for someone who's like, hey, Daniel's pretty cool. I want to be that. I want to be that guy who can, go from not coding at all to Udemy to just getting a job as an engineer and then going back and being able to teach. I mean, that's like another level. Like I can do a lot of things, but I'm not sure I can teach them. And so what would you say to someone like that? And who is coding right for? Like what type of person would you say?
Wow. Wow. So my best advice would be go sign up for my theater class, guys. Oh, anyhow, what I just wanted to say honestly is that look, the best advice I could give is, first of all, try it for sure. I wouldn't say try a bootcamp straight, because a bootcamp could be too overwhelming. My, I guess, secret in all of this was that I had 60 hours of experience before starting the bootcamp. I arrived already with a little bit of knowledge, if not already a lot for a beginner. And that really took me apart from all the others, because starting a bootcamp as a complete beginner is very, very challenging. They tell you before the bootcamp to do 10 hours on your own, but still, you have to be patient, you have to understand everything and to arrive there. And today I feel like as a developer, I'm really allowed to do anything. You ask me tomorrow to learn about C sharp or C++, no problem. I understand the logic of it. I know it will be most likely the same because there are always like a base you need to learn. And then the only thing that changes, as I spoke also with Ben, what is the syntax? Today
Right.
coding is the same. Oh, I mean, almost the same, depending on what you want to do. If it's web or if it's backend or front end or both, that depends on what framework you wanna use. But definitely having a good try. Coding can have many parts in it, with like design or creating a robot or even hardware in the future. So coding is not only about like creating just a website. It goes way beyond that. And yeah, you know trying it. And also maybe another cool advice would be to find a buddy, so like to find a friend or someone that you can trust that will always help you doing it. Completely alone, I'm not sure, but I was happy to have, as I said, good people around me. And I asked, and even if you guys want to have my info, you guys probably will link whatever,
Yeah.
LinkedIn or whatever. I'll be happy to be the one helping those who want to try coding. Yeah, helping gives me the same satisfaction as debugging myself. If I debug the code of someone else, I'm even more happy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Amazing. So I think that's really good advice, like getting someone with you and just giving it a shot, starting off with a few hours on the internet to see if you really connect
Yeah.
to it. And what's like a realistic time frame to actually, would you say, becoming a developer? Like you did in 3 months, 4 months, but because I hear a lot of people have different opinions about this,
Yeah.
about how much you should prepare if you really want to become a developer.
Wow.
How much time, so for example, if you were going to switch your
Mhm.
careers and you needed to plan your financial runway, so to
Mhm.
speak.
I did a little bit also of personal development. I also like to watch some videos about it. And there
Yeah.
is this idea of, if you want to start becoming an expert in a domain, in a skill, you have actually to reach the 10,000 hours of it. So
Mhm.
I know it sounds a bit crazy. I don't think I reached them, like, for sure. I haven't. But what I want to say is that this, I think, is a base for being like, a developer. And I say that because even though I succeeded doing what I did now without reaching that 10,000 hours, I just want to say that it will take definitely a certain amount of time, but I'm not there yet. I wouldn't want to answer and say, hey, you can be something in 3 or 4 or 5 months, because I'm not sure I'm there yet. I'm not sure I'm there yet. And I guess
Well,
also,
but we're not saying that you're an expert, but at what point do you feel, I think you're
yeah,
sort
Oh,
if you now quit your job,
yeah.
there's an overlap period.
Mhm.
So how long before you can start being useful and start earning money instead of just living off your savings?
If you ask it that way, then um, okay. What probably what I would say will be those 3 months boot camp are definitely a big change, because that's also the point of it. They tell you, okay, you want a life change. I mean, I like the way they sell it, but that's also a little bit what it is. But if you want a life, career change, those 12 weeks should be enough to already get you into something. So definitely 3 months intensive. And then I would give also, before that or after the boot camp, another 3 months of research and of building, and of what we say also as developers, improving your personal portfolio of
Mhm.
project. Today, what developers do is that they take previous projects that they copy paste, and then they rearrange to the needs of
But that's
I have a folder, Python, Django, all my Django projects. And I know more or less what I did into those projects thanks to the name. And I say, okay, I know in this project I have a search bar that is using a couple of filters. So, okay, I'm going to take that part of that project that uses the search bar to maybe putting it somewhere else, or a contact form that I liked from an app that I'm going to, paste it on somewhere else.
I noticed that I do that a lot with
Yeah.
Flutter, because a lot of widgets you can reuse over and over again. So I also do that. If I make a good search bar, or I make a good carousel for pictures, I would even sometimes I even save them as their own projects, just so I can have I can reach the source code really easily. So yeah, I do that a lot too.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
Okay, so I have a quick question. So once you studied after your Udemy course, you must have been thinking like, oh, should I do a computer science degree, or how do I continue my studies? And what was your thinking about a boot camp versus a computer science degree? Or were you just like, oh, I saw this ad, I mean, this sounds good. You weren't even thinking about a computer science degree. You were just like seeing where the world takes you.
All right, great question. So first of all, that's maybe a little more personal, but I never was someone who was really attracted by academic like courses. I always loved, no matter what I did, like workshops. I did acting workshops. I did hotel workshops. I did dance classes also, like workshops. And I always liked that the way of being really focused on one particular topic for like a certain amount of time, other than having to enroll into a 2 or 3 year academic studies. That's my view on it. Some people would like it more because probably they will cover more things and they will live as student in university in cities. That's really up to everyone. But the way I process information and the way I like to teach myself new stuff was always using this path. Now, I'm always open to new stuff. If tomorrow there is, I know if tomorrow Google's open a university, which I think is definitely possible, about new topics, and it takes a year, maybe I'll say, okay, you know what, I'll go for the Google, certificate or whatever, Google degree, and I will be happy to get it. But other than that, yeah, I don't see other things. I don't know if there was another question inside your questions.
No, I think that really covers it. Because yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, I want to become a developer and I want to work in that world. And the automatic thought would be to go to university to study computer science. So it's interesting that for you, that wasn't an automatic, because you were already like, oh, that's not really for me, or oh, it's not for me right now. And so, yeah, and that's important, because when we're thinking about alternative education options today, there are so many. And it's not just some people, it's really amazing for them to go, like you said, to go to a city and study at a certain university, also for the social life, etc. But there are so many more than online resources now. It's more than self-paced videos like you did on Udemy. Suddenly you're doing a boot camp and you're mixing those two, and then you're doing an internship, and that's leading you to teach and like work on this new company. And all that is in a year versus 3 years of university where you're outside of the workforce. And that's one of the things that we're trying to stress, because I've been through the university system, and a lot of times it's very disconnected from industry. And so now what we're really trying to do is push for things that are really connected to industry, so you can kind of ebb and flow between them. You're learning, you're doing, you're learning, you're doing. And that's the message that's really important.
I totally agree. I also am going to add another thing. My teacher, when I started the boot camp, said, all right, guys, we're starting now. So 9 weeks of Python. Just before we start, just wanted to tell you that you guys don't need a boot camp. You can do everything on your own. And you're right. And the first time Python, all right. So obviously it was a little bit sarcastic, but I think there's a lot of true in that, in a way that today can get whatever information if, again, you're patient and you're willing to learn and teach yourself. But yeah, it maybe
Cool.
doesn't require a 3-year, university.
I think if there's any doubt about that, your story kind of takes it away because,
Mhm.
I did 3 years of computer science, and within a year, you went from your first line of code to, I mean, in less than a year, you went from your first line of code to working. And like we all agree, college education is great, but it's amazing to see there are other paths, and that you can be very successful in them. And I think you have a very inspiring story. I think it's so cool. You went from first. I just think it's so poetic how you went from first line of code to instructor within a year. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah.
cool.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right. So we've reached the top of the hour. And this was an amazing conversation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think we learned a lot. And I think our audience will really take away and have a look at the boot camp you did. And I think more than what you did, it's the approach it seems like you're taking. Like, there's nothing more satisfying than debugging. And I think some people look at it a little bit differently. And I think going with that, with a smile and taking on the challenge that way is pretty amazing. Is there anything you want to last thoughts and want to plug? I know we spoke about your company, any personal projects or anything, or any advice.
Wow, I would love to speak about like the rest, whatever, my story for another 3 hours. I love most of it. No, honestly, I'd rather finish with a nice thank you, because I think I gotta be grateful for what I have, and also thanks to you guys for giving me the opportunity to speak. Yeah, I hope a lot of people will take good info from that and will continue, because it was a hard time, and finding a new job or getting into a new industry is not always easy. But I think we have to stay positive, to stay with good people, keeping the smile and trusting ourselves.
Awesome. All right. Amazing. Daniel, thank you very much for coming on, and stay tuned, everyone. Next week, have an amazing episode on no code, low code. So thank you.